Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. All right. So shall I start, Malay,
Yes,
or is there any other
Yes, sir.
formalities?
Yeah. I welcome Professor Dr. Vidyasagar Poddar for this 5 days GIAN program. Welcome you, sir, once again. And over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all very much. And I hope you can see my screen very clearly. If there is anything issue, let me know.
Yes,
I
sir.
have a backup laptop on the left, so I can see what's happening on the screen.
Yes,
So I
sir.
can see myself that, my screen is visible. Okay, so welcome everyone. I think it is a great pleasure to have you all be part of this program. I think it is going to be a very interesting and enjoyable next 5 days. The 5 lectures that I have developed or designed will take you through the basics of supply chain and supply chain management. And then we will go into what is blockchain. And then we will talk about blockchain interoperability in supply chain. So today's session is going to be focused on supply chain management. So I'll talk about supply chain, the challenges associated with supply chain, why interoperability is important, what are the benefits of interoperability, and so on. So that is the objective of today's session. That is the main broad agenda. So on this note, I would like to welcome you all once again so that we can begin this program. And I hope you all have an enjoyable and a nice experience going through this GIAN program. So I want to formally thank you, Malayana, for taking the lead in organizing this GIAN program. Without his efforts, and I guess the efforts of all the others at NIT, this would not have been possible. Even the GIAN coordinator, I think their role is also very important in ensuring a smooth operation of a program like this. So thank you very much. All right. So before we actually get into the course or discussion for today, I would like to kind of get an introduction from you all. I want to know who is part of the group. If it would have been a face-to-face event, I would have met you personally and I would have understand what is your background. But as we are running this in an online mode, I would like you to introduce yourself one by one. And Malay, maybe you can decide who speaks first in the order that you see them on their screen. Basically, just tell me your name, what you are studying, where are you from, and what are you expecting to get from this course. Okay, so over to you. Let's get the introductions done, and then we will begin with the program.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
My name is S. Deenadayalan.
Yeah.
I'm audible, sir?
Yes, you're audible.
Yes, sir. Actually, I am working in an assistant professor in National Engineering College, the Department of Computer Science Engineering, in the past 13 years, sir. Actually, my hometown is Kovilpatti. It's out of south, down south side, Tamil Nadu, Thuthukudi district, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Sivasakti. Now I am doing PhD, for full-time PhD in Anna University, Chennai, sir. And my area is in blockchain area. So I choose to in blockchain security, enhanced to security algorithm. Even now I will research in areas. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, sir. Sir, myself Raja Pandian. Hello. Good morning, sir. Myself Raja Pandian. I am a research scholar from Department of EEE in IIT Puducherry. My research area is secure peer-to-peer energy trading using blockchain technology. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Liz George. I am working as an assistant professor at St. Joseph's College, Kottayam in Kerala. And I am doing my part-time PhD in blockchain, privacy in blockchain in Kerala Technological University. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Good morning, sir. I am Vikas. I am pursuing my PhD from Motilal Nehru Institute of Technology, Allahabad. And my research area is blockchain implementation in accounting and bookkeeping.
Okay, accounting and what, sorry?
Accounting and bookkeeping.
Accounting and bookkeeping, okay.
Yes.
Who is going next?
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir. My name is Uma, and I'm currently doing my PhD in machine learning from Christ University. And actually, I'm totally new to this technology, so I want to learn the basics thing, and I want to know more about this. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, all right.
Good morning, sir. Myself, I'm Tangapurni, currently doing my PhD in VIT Chennai campus. And even I wanted to know the basic of the blockchain and all, so I have joined this session.
So what is your PhD on?
It's in medical image processing, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Hi.
Good morning, sir. Myself, Mithun Kumar Kar. I am from Orissa, doing research scholars and NIT Puducherry.
Okay. And what is your area, research area? Sorry, Mithun, I did not get your research area. What is your topic for research?
Sir, my topic is on deep learning. I am working on deep learning, sir.
Deep learning. Okay.
Deep
Okay.
learning, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, I am Vijay Lakshmi. Currently, I am working as an associate professor in Vignan Institute of Engineering for Women in Visakhapatnam. So recently, I have completed my PhD. So that's I want to know. This is a new technology. Just I want to know what all the researchers are going on in this field.
Okay. And what was your PhD on?
It is image processing.
Image processing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else left in the to introduce themselves?
Good morning, sir.
Hello.
I am Divya, PhD scholar. from NIT Puducherry, EC department. I'm working in the area of medical signal processing under the supervisor of Dr. Malay Kumar Nath, sir.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next.
Sir, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, this is Saravana Kumar, research scholar from NIT Puducherry, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anyone next? Or if you're unable to speak, maybe you can introduce yourself in the chat. Just leave a chat message and then I can check it later. Okay, so I would let's proceed further. So what I wanted you to maybe you can mention this in the chat as well, is tell me what you expect to learn from this GIAN program. And some of you already mentioned that just now when you introduced yourself. Some of you who are not from the blockchain technology background, you want to learn a bit more about the technology. So I think that I will definitely cover in this program. Those who are already in the blockchain space, I guess we will learn a bit more about how a blockchain interoperability works. But if there is anything specific that you have in mind that you are expecting from this program, I think it will be good for you to mention that. And you can leave that, mention that as a comment in the chat, and so that I can read it after the session. And in the future sessions, I will try to accommodate your requests in terms of what learnings that you want to get from the GIAN program. Before we begin, I want to tell you all that I want you to be kind of open and free talking to me because I want you to learn properly and nicely over the next 5 days. So as you may know that, or you might have judged by now that I'm very approachable and a friendly person. So don't keep any thing to you. If you have any question, feel free to ask me, and I'll be very happy to answer those questions for you. So this is a session plan that we would follow for the rest of the program. So we'll have a 1 hour lecture starting from 10 to 11 to begin with the first lecture. Then we'll take a short 15-minute break. And then we will have another continuation of that lecture for another 45 minutes. And then I'll keep a time for some Q&A, question and answer session towards the end. Today is going to be a little bit different because I have one meeting that I have to attend. So we will go from 10 to 11 and then I will take a half an hour break and then we will do another 1 hour after that. So there is a little bit change in the schedule for today, but from tomorrow onwards, we will follow this plan. If you have any questions during the event or during this course, make a note of all your questions. I have also created a Google Doc where you can post your questions. So in case the questions I'm not able to answer them all in the Q&A session, I will get back to you by responding to those questions in that Google Doc. The link to the Google Doc is this. So if you want to maybe copy this now and open the Google Docs, and if you have any questions, you can start posting the questions there. I will prefer that we can take the questions in the end, so that I can finish off with the things that I want to cover, and then we can have a dedicated 15-minute session on Q&A. And also we can continue the Q&A later in the tutorial sessions. Okay, so copy this link, bit.ly/3v7paba. So this will hopefully open the Google Docs for you, and you can. It's a common document, so all of you can add questions to the same document together. I'll give you maybe a few more seconds to open that document. If you have opened it, just leave a message in the chat window. Okay, all right. Thank you. I can see somebody has replied saying that they have done it. So, okay, let's move on. All right, so let's get started. The focus for today's session is going to be on supply chain. I want to explain you or walk you through various aspects of supply chain and supply chain management. So we will cover 8 different topics in today's session. So we'll start with an introduction to supply chain. Then I will talk about supply chain processes. We'll then list some of the key characteristics of a supply chain. We will then move on to supply chain management activities. So what does it mean when we have to manage a large and a complex supply chain? How can we streamline the existing supply chain so that it is more productive and more efficient? I will then talk about some of the supply chain challenges that needs to be resolved or addressed. We then talk about the drivers for interoperability. So some of the challenges identified for the supply chain can be resolved using data interoperability. And I'll talk about that. And then we'll conclude today's session with the benefits of interoperability. So that is the layout for the session today. And after the session is completed, I will upload a copy of these slides, or I will share it to you all, and you can have it for you to review in your own time. Okay, so I want to start with the first topic, which is on supply chain. So if you see the picture behind this is showing you an example of what a supply chain is. And here it shows you a big ship carrying lots of containers from one country to another, and a crane that is going to pick up these containers and either put it on the ship or put it at the port. So this is an example of a supply chain, one of the activities that happens during in the supply chain. So if we have to define supply chain, I thought it will be a good idea to begin with a simple definition of what we mean by supply chain, and then we go into the explanation for supply chain management. So let me read this. A supply chain is defined as a set of 3 or more entities. So this could be entities, could be different companies directly involved in the upstream and downstream flows of products, services, finances, and or information from a source to a customer. So typically a supply chain begins at one end. Either it could be a farm where something is grown, or it is a manufacturing facility or a factory where something is produced. And once it is produced, it is transported through a transporting company. It goes to a reseller, wholesaler, distributor, and in the end, it reaches the customer. So whenever we are talking about upstream and downstream, it is relative to the entity that we are referring to. So if I am a transport company, what would be downstream for me will be where I am picking up my products, and upstream will be where I am delivering those products. So in a supply chain, the entities that are there, they are connected one after the other in a sequential order. And I will show you an example later to give you, that will make it even more clearer. So for now, just remember that we are starting at a source where something is grown or manufactured, and it ends at the customer when the customer buys that product or a service. Okay, so the previous slide was about supply chain. And now I'm going to talk about supply chain management. Okay, so supply chain management, as you can see here, is defined as the systemic, strategic coordination of the traditional business functions and the tactics across these business functions within a particular company and across businesses. So it is between between different companies within the supply chain for the purpose of improving the long-term performance of the individual companies and the supply chain as a whole. Okay, so that is supply chain management. So managing a supply chain is one of the challenging activities or jobs, because there are so many different parties or entities or companies that are involved, that getting a streamlined and coordinated supply chain management is something that many companies and its partners they want to be able to do that. And companies that are successful in doing supply chain management have a very strong competitive advantage over their competitors. So in the tutorial session today, I would want you to think about one company that has done very good supply chain management in India. Okay, or maybe in any other country as well, but India may be suitable because you might be knowing companies that are based there. All right, I'll give you one example. One example that is, say, Amazon, right? When I come to India, I always shop on Amazon because it is quite convenient for me, picking up my phone and just quickly ordering. And next thing I know, that product is at my doorsteps, sometimes in the next few hours or the next day. So what happens behind the scene? You know, the moment I say hit purchase or buy on my phone, what happens in the background is supply chain management. And you can imagine what all things that need to happen for my product that I have ordered to be picked up from whichever warehouse, assigned to a courier company, who then assigns it to a delivery driver. The delivery driver comes, picks up the products, delivers it to me, and that whole process ends. And this happens again and again, and it happens for so many people who are ordering online, right? So there is a lot of things that goes in the background when we are when we are talking about supply chain. So this example just gives you an idea of the complexity that is involved when when managing a supply chain. Next, I want to talk about supply chain management philosophy. Okay, so when we think about a philosophy, let's see what I want to say here. A supply chain philosophy can be said as a systems approach of viewing the supply chain as a whole and to managing the total flow of goods, inventory from the supplier to the ultimate customer. So that is what we want to achieve from end to end. So starting at the supplier or a manufacturer and reaching to the end customer. So that is one you can consider as a one philosophy. Let's look at the next one. A strategic orientation towards cooperative efforts to synchronize and converge intra-firm, that is in between the firms, and inter-firms, which is between two different firms, the operational and strategic capabilities into a unified whole. Right? So that is another philosophy. So the whole interaction, strategic alignment and operational alignment to make this whole thing happen seamlessly is an example of a supply chain philosophy. Next, a customer focus to create unique and individualized sources of customer value, leading to customer satisfaction. So this is the next philosophy. So here what we are focusing on, we are looking at from a customer perspective. So the whole supply chain and all the partners in the supply chain are focused on achieving one main objective or one key objective, and that is to provide the customer what they have ordered or what they have requested. So a customer focus is very important when you are providing when you're managing a supply chain. Yeah. So customer focus to create unique and individualized sources of customer value. So customer value is important here because we can imagine customer could be a busy person. So they may have a lot of other things going on in their life, and ordering something is just one of their tasks that they're doing, and they don't want to be too much worried about it. As long as they have ordered something, it should come. Yeah, but whatever happens in the background, in the back end, is the skill that supply chain professionals bring to ensure this seamless experience for the end customer. Okay, on this slide, I have shown a simple example of a supply chain, right? So on the left side here, you can see here you can see supplier at the very first, yeah, on the very left. From there, the next is the factory. So factory is manufacturing something, and for manufacturing, whatever they are manufacturing, they need to get the raw materials. So the raw materials come from the suppliers. Once the factories have manufactured, they ship their products and they are then stored in a warehouse or across multiple warehouses. From there, it goes to a shop or a retail outlet. And finally, from there, it goes to the consumers. So this is a simple example of how a supply chain operates. And you can see on the top here, it shows the product flow. So product is moving from supplier to the factories, from factories to the warehouses, then to the outlets, and finally to the consumer. So that is the product flow. Underneath that, you can see there is information flow, right? Which means there's a lot of information that moves across between each of these different stages of supply chain. So there will be information shared by the supplier to the factories, between factories to warehouses. Warehouse may send some information to retail outlets, and so on. So information flow is both ways, right? How both ways? For example, what will be the information coming back? For example, consumers receive a product and then they find that there is some fault in that product. So they contact the retail outlet. From the retail outlet, the same information goes to the warehouse, to the factories, and so on. So information and product flow can happen both sides, but more so, information flow is definitely happening on either side of the supply chain. Okay. In this figure, you can get a bit more understanding, a little bit more depth of how the entire supply chain operates. So on the in here, we only had sorry. Here we only showed like a simple example here. But when we go to the this screen, you can see there are multiple suppliers, tier 1 suppliers, tier 2 suppliers, tier 3 suppliers, and then there are multiple customers, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 or end customers. So if this, and in the middle, the black box is the focal company, right? What do I mean by a focal company? A focal company is the company who is manufacturing something or making something, right? So if I'm manufacturing a car, for example, I may have my tier 1 suppliers, right? So tier 1 suppliers could be sending me some products. For example, one company is manufacturing the wheels, one is manufacturing the engine, one is manufacturing maybe the seats inside, another is manufacturing the lights, right? So now to manufacture the wheels, for example, I may need to buy some metal. Yes, that comes from this supplier. I may need some bolts. I may need some nuts. So all those suppliers are going when I'm buying from these suppliers. Similarly, in this case, so there is a network of suppliers, and which is what we call as tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. It could be tier 4 as well. But that's the typical layout of how the suppliers information that you can find from the suppliers. Now, I have got all the products, all the supplies that I need to manufacture something. So I have manufactured my car, right? Now, I have to sell this car and I'm sending that car to my tier 1 customer. So this could be large car companies that buy like thousands of cars. Yeah. So like a big dealership. From there, tier 2 customers could be the next level of customers who say buy 100 cars each. And finally, this tier 2 customer then sells it to the end customer who is just buying a single car. So you can see how a large number of suppliers from here supply a lot of things for one company to manufacture something, and how that company then sells it across different customer segments to reach the final end consumer. So the reason why I showed you this figure is for you to get an understanding of how complex supply chains can be and what is the amount of information or data that would be shared from in the end to end. So starting from tier 3 suppliers to tier 3 consumers, there is a lot of information that is created at every stage of the supply chain or at every stage of the manufacturing or the creation process. If this information is easily accessible to everyone in the supply chain network, the supply chain productivity will be very high. On the other hand, if this information is not easily accessible, then it creates bottlenecks in the supply chain, and that creates that slows down the supply chain. So what do I mean by that? Say, for example, a tier 1 supplier wants some information from tier 2 supplier. Say, for example, the quality control tests for the wheels that they have ordered. If this connection or this link is weak, which means this supplier asks supplier 2 to send the information, they may be able to they may call the supplier, tell them over phone, or send an email or some other form of communication, and that takes time, right? It can delay getting the information, and that delay can affect the decision that has to be taken. So if this information is easily accessible to everyone, the supply chain can become faster. And this is where interoperability comes into picture. So with interoperability, everyone in the supply chain will have access to the information that they are authorized to have access to. And that's where we will later on talk about how blockchain technology can help improving this whole supply chain process by making information accessible to everyone in the supply chain network. Okay, so this is another example or a more detailed flow of how the whole supply chain works and what are the different aspects that companies have to consider when improving or optimizing their supply chain. So what I'm thinking is we will talk more about this slide in our tutorial section today because it will be much more interactive in the tutorial session. So I will skip this for now. And we'll move on to supply chain process, and we will see what this means. So here I have given you an example of a supply chain process for a building and construction company. So for example, if you are going to build a house, you are the customer at the very end, number 7. And to build your house, this is the different parties that are involved. So we will have the builder who is going to build the house. The builder will hire different trades people, like someone to a bricklayer to lay the bricks, and a carpenter to build to set up the doors, and so on. They have to go one step back to dealers to get the required materials for construction. The dealer has to rely on the distributors to provide them with the information or with the products that they need. From there, the distributors rely on manufacturers having sufficient quantity of products ready for supply, and manufacturers rely on their raw material suppliers to furnish the required products. So you can see here, just to build a house, how many different entities or companies are involved in this process. And this is actually a very simplified version of the whole process. It can be, in reality, it can be even more complex. But for the sake of simplicity for this course, I have explained it using 7 different steps. So now let's dig into each of these steps and see what are the challenges that each of these entities face when they are trying to fulfill their customer. So one thing I want to tell you here, or want you to think about, is everyone is a customer for the next person in the chain, right? For example, for the builder, the customer who wants to build the house is the customer. For the trade contractors, the builder is the customer. For the dealer, the tradesperson is the customer. So it's always a next person in the chain is your customer. So for a raw material suppliers, what are their challenges? Inventory surplus or deficit based upon estimated demand by the manufacturers. So if the manufacturers know how much to manufacture, they will give proper information to the raw material suppliers, right? That I need X amount of doors. I need 100 doors in the next 2 weeks. So that could be the, so if the manufacturer knows that, they can tell the raw material suppliers that keep enough wood ready because I need to manufacture 100 doors. Similarly, from the manufacturer to the distributor. So the distributor can say, I need to distribute 50 doors to one company. So please keep 50 doors ready for me. And there could be multiple distributors. So this is one, there could be others. So everyone has their demand. Everyone has their minimum supply that they want to order. So manufacturer has to cater to all that. The estimated demand for inventory is not projected properly, therefore inventory management can become an issue. So if the forecasting is not done properly, it has a domino effect, because if distributors say they would want 50, the manufacturer can keep 50 doors ready. But if the distributor then realizes that, oh, I need 500 instead of 50, the manufacturer is in trouble because they have not sourced enough raw material to manufacture 500 doors. So you can see how the ripple effect happens, you know. So forecasting becomes very critical in supply chain management. And similarly, the same thing happens from here. So if the dealer has sufficient stock, then they would know that, okay, I'm expecting 400 doors to be ordered by my clients. I will tell the distributor that I need to have that much amount of doors ready, and so on. And then those challenges kind of start continuing one after the other. Every member or every entity in the supply chain has to do a best guess of how much they would need, what would be their demand, and based upon that, they can request that from their suppliers downstream. Right. So, for example, if builder, so where does it all kind of begin, right? So, if the builder is going to say, I will try and get 10 houses, I will build 10 houses in the next 1 month, I would need a bricklayer, I would need a carpenter, I would need a plumber, electrician, and so on. And they would then need that, okay, if I have to work on 10 houses, I would need 100,000 bricks. I would need 200 square meters or 2,000 square feet of tiles, and so on. So that whole requirement for the different products in the supply chain is interdependent on the entities and their demands. Okay, so this shows you the challenges from step 1 all the way till step 7. So what are the different challenges that different entities can face due to a supply chain that is not designed or optimized properly? Okay, next we will move on to supply chain characteristics. So when we are talking about supply chain, first of all, like so far what all I have explained, you would have got an understanding that supply chain involves a lot of participants, right? Just in the previous slide, I showed you 7 entities, 7 companies that were involved in just building one house. In reality, it could be more than 20, 30, 40 companies and their employees that would be part of this whole exercise. So there is a lot of participants, and that increases, and that also kind of creates a lot of complexity for the work that they have to do. Next is the heterogeneity of participants. So the companies that are involved in the supply chain, all different companies are doing different things, right? So as a result of that, it is not as seamless or as easy as it seems when we have to manage a supply chain. So heterogeneity of participants, different participants coming to the supply chain with a different objective and different expectations makes the supply chain even more complex. Next thing is a huge variety in ICT uptake. And what I mean by that is, in a supply chain environment, some companies could be very advanced, technically very advanced, and some companies would be either may not have any technology, or they would have just very limited bare minimum technology with which they can work. Okay, so there is a huge variety in the ICT uptake. So if one customer or one company in the supply chain is very advanced, that company would expect that other companies or their suppliers are equally advanced, because if they are, in that case, it will become much easier for them to communicate faster, exchange information, and just speed up the whole process. But if you can imagine, one person or one company has good infrastructure, good ICT infrastructure, and the other company does not, then it will create a mismatch, and the supply chain will start to function slowly. Another example to explain the same thing is to take an example of the internet speed, right? So if one person or one company has a very fast internet or fast broadband, they can send a large file very quickly. But on the other hand, if the receiving party, their downstream supplier, their internet speed is very low or very slow, then it will take them a long time to receive that file and for any work that they have to do related to that file. So you can see the variation or the variety of ICT infrastructure also affects supply chain substantially, supply chain performance substantially. And the poor information flow. This is a next challenge. And this is about the same example that I gave you earlier on. If the infrastructure is not compatible, then flow of information can be affected. If I have to send a large file, my internet is good, I send it faster, but my supplier, either they don't have proper internet, sometimes they do not have electricity, or it could be any reason. They cannot receive the information that I'm sending. That creates a poor flow of information. And that flow or that slow speed of receiving information or processing information creates makes the supply chain slower. Another thing is one up and one down data flow. And what I mean by that is the supplier or the company in focus, they do not have a lot of visibility across different levels of suppliers. So me as a one company probably knows my supplier one level down and my customer one level up, right? So that is all the visibility that probably I have, or most companies have in this situation. So that kind of creates the information silos, right? Because if I know the expectations of my customers, second customer, tier 2 customer, and the current status of my tier 2 supplier, then I'll be in a better position to make better decisions for my business, right? But if that is missing, then again, it impacts the supply chain very seriously. Another thing is to consider the regulation and certification. So sometimes there are government regulations that require companies to have some information and share it with their suppliers mandatorily, in which case we can take the benefit of this information or of this option, but that is also one of the characteristics of the supply chain to be mindful of. All right. So next topic is supply chain management activities, and here we will see what I mean. I've discussed some activities already, but we will dive deeper a little bit more. So one of the first supply chain management activities, I would say, is integrated behavior. And what I mean by that is different companies and different partners have to work cohesively, work together in an integrated manner so that everyone benefits because of that behavior, because of that activity, right? So having an integrated behavior improves the supply chain substantially. It not only makes access to information easier, but it also helps organizations to take proper and timely decisions with the right information at hand. The next bit of important information is the ability to share this information. And this is where we will later talk about how blockchain technology can help in getting this sharing of information, and not only sharing, but working on one shared database so that we do not have multiple copies of data lying across different suppliers and their databases, and the resulting complexity and inconsistency that can originate because of this redundancy across the network. So if you can imagine a situation where the tier 3 supplier, that is the one at the very end, and tier 1 customer, or again at the very end, all of them work on an information or a database that is shared across the network, and each member of the network, that is the different companies, have access to the information that they need, but that whole information collection is just one big information that is shared. Everyone does not have independent, separate copies of their own database, right? So if there is one central information source where everyone can go and fetch the information or record the information, you will have one source of truth. So that makes it very useful for a supply chain because it kind of improves the overall access to the information. There is no confusion about which information is the correct one. Many a times it may happen that you may send an invoice, or you may send a purchase order or a remittance advice or whatever, and it may happen that the person requesting it says, oh, I did not receive it, could you send it again? And then by mistake you may send something wrong, or something like that can happen, right? So that thing creates multiple copies of the same information and increases creates confusion or increases complexity as to which is the most recent piece of document that I have to work on. But if there is only one source of information, one database that we rely on, it improves the whole situation. The next thing I would say is also to mutually sharing risks and rewards with your suppliers in the supply chain. So if for the whole supply chain to benefit equally, or in a way that all the entities in the supply chain are better off by working together, one thing that they need to explore is how to share the risks and how to share the rewards, right? So in terms of sharing the risk, what do I mean by that? Right. So if one of the companies in the supply chain places a large order, right? So I need, say, 1,000 doors, right? A builder places an order. The manufacturer has to manufacture those 1,000 doors. They have to get the raw materials from their suppliers. But what happens if the builder is not able to sell or use that many doors, right? Many a times it can happen that our forecasting or prediction can go wrong. So what happens in that situation? So if the risks can be shared by the supply chain partners, it will be a more productive and much better performing supply chain. Otherwise, everyone will be very cautious, of whether I should really take on the orders or not. So that thing is very important. And similarly, if there are benefits or rewards that are achieved because of a homogeneous and streamlined supply chain, then that can be shared across others, throughout the entire supply chain. Okay, so I think we have reached the 1 hour session now. I have to be at another short meeting. So I may request you all to kind of take a break and review some of these topics that I have covered. And then we will start again in the next 30 minutes. Okay, thank you very much. If you have any questions, take this time to note down those questions in your Google Docs. All right, I'll stop the call now and I will join in 30 minutes time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.